Exactly.
Pretty shocking.
Really?
Yeah. We're live. Hello,
Hi.
everyone. We are live with Mr. Hines. Hi, bellicon family. We
Hey,
are
folks.
live. All right, friends. So I want to start out by saying I am Fayth. I'm a bellicon trainer for many years now. Nice to meet you all. I will introduce my special guest in one moment, but I just wanted to say throughout this chat, please feel free to write in on the comments and we will get to some questions at the end. So it will help guide our talks. If you have any questions, feel free to post it, even if it's just, John, what is your favorite color? Like, feel free to post it. We will try our best to answer it as long as it's appropriate. And also tell us where you're from, because that's just fun to hear. Okay, that being said, I will get to our special guest, who is Mr. Hines. John Hines has been with bellicon in many different capacities over a decade.
About 12 years. Yeah, almost
12 years. And one of the reasons we wanted to bring John on our show today was because out of everyone I've ever spoken to, he knows the most about research around rebounding. I mean, published research, which is always a big question people ask is, okay, you're claiming this benefit, you're claiming that benefit, but show us the research. So with that being said, we're gonna try to do that. We got the pro on. So John, the first thing I wanted to throw out there is to talk a little bit about gravity. As simple as that sounds. So
simple. Well, it's one of the four major forces in the universe.
The complexity, because this is what makes rebounding unique in terms of benefits. The idea of working with and against gravity is sort of going to be our grounding force, no pun intended, for the rest of the talk. So very briefly, if you could give us sort of those who don't know about the benefit of gravity and rebounding, shoot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gravity is sort of was the conclusion when I first came to bellicon. I didn't know whether I could wholeheartedly promote it because I knew nothing about it. And our CEO at the time said, "Well, then research it and let us know what you find out." So that's how I got started with the research. And because I knew nothing about it, and I thought, like a lot of people, it just seemed silly. How could it be a great exercise? And after years of looking into this, and talking to so many customers and people who use it, but also reading a lot of research about it, I came to the conclusion, as a lot of you may have, that it's really the best home exercise, period. And trying to figure out why that is, why it has so many distinct benefits, that you come to gravity, because that's how it's different than everything else. I mean, than jogging or cycling. You're not maximizing the use of gravity, and it has so many distinct applications to your body. Your whole body reacts to gravitational changes really positively. And so, I mean, actually what started the mini trampoline rage was, many people have heard this, is a NASA study that was trying to understand why astronauts came back deconditioned. They'd lost muscle mass, they'd lost bone mineral density, and they realized, they're not getting enough gravity. And so this first study, the first real study with trampolining that showed how good it was a NASA study that showed that it was better than jogging for improving overall fitness. And that was a surprise to everybody. And that actually generated in the 80s a big glut of mini trampoline sales.
That was when people write in, they're like, I used to be at the gym on my spring trampoline back in 19, they'll write it and say that. That's a lot from that study. So that's the first.
And they gave it up, right? For 30 years. They're like, now I'm out of shape. Yeah, it's like, okay.
They gave it up. They needed the Bungee. The Bungee was the kicker. So that's the big first thing is gravity. So let's hit the heavy points. So one of the big questions we get is about cardiovascular work and rebounding. So common question is, what is the research around cardiovascular training on a rebounder versus a treadmill or solid ground? Like, what can you share about that? Because that's a big one people ask is, they sometimes say, I don't feel like I'm working as hard on the rebounder as I do on the treadmill. And so I want to show them that's different.
It's great that you point out not only the cardiovascular benefits, but also the fact that people say, I don't feel like I'm working as hard. That was actually it's a good lead into one study that came out in January of 2018 in the German Journal of Sports Medicine. And they did a very comprehensive study about cardiovascular fitness. And I've got it in my notes somewhere too, some quotes from it. But essentially what they saw was the they were trying to see if it was a substantial exercise that could be recommended by the American Heart Association.
Sure.
And not only did it surpass the expectations, the participants reduced their body fat by 5.4% during the study, which they didn't expect. They didn't expect any of this. But actually, I think one of the interesting things, and this comes up in a few studies, was that the participants thought they weren't working that hard.
Yeah.
And because there's a scale that you can actually, that fitness people use to your perceived exertion.
Yep.
Yeah. And they kept thinking they were doing a very moderate form of exercise. And the researchers were saying, actually, no, when we look at your heart rate and your oxygen consumption, you're doing a vigorous form of exercise, which surprised everybody. And that's one of the great things about rebounding is there's another study that actually kind of, one of its conclusions to try and understand is saying, I think people are having fun. I mean, they phrased it a little differently, but they literally use the word fun, which you don't see a lot in technical studies, right? Because they're trying to explain why the people, actually, even in the first study, in the NASA study, they were saying the enjoyment factor may be a reason why people are getting so much exercise, which is,
there are plenty of studies linked to that with if it's not fun, we will not continue doing it. And so we have to have that intrinsic motivation of it brings us joy in order to do it. And that's true.
And here's another one. There was a American Council on Exercise actually sponsored a recent study about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they similarly, the same reaction for the participants. We would expect participants to report ratings of perceived exertion of about 13 at this intensity level, but the subjects averaged 11.7. So it was a different framework.
Yeah.
The enjoyment factor may have made things easier, and yet it's the study that says, it's equivalent to running, six miles an hour. It's and they didn't feel like they were doing any of that at the rate they were going.
Yeah, and a lot of that is that low impact nature with the bungees on the joints, is that we're not adding that that strain.
Yeah, this was bungee based. I mean, there are studies even without bungees, just as an exercise. I mean, everything is better with bungees, but there are even studies like International Journal of Sports Science, which was a big one that came out in 2016, and that was the one that showed really dramatic because they really did full out exercise on 30 minutes workouts. And that one showed that people were reducing, it was burning fat 50% faster than running. And it was increasing cardiovascular fitness over the 12-week period, more than twice as much as people jogging, which is huge, obviously.
Our next heavy hitter question that comes up a lot is around lymphatic circulation.
Right. Right.
I would love to talk. I get this all the time, and it's good. People are asking this. Okay, they'll say, you say that it's good for your lymphatic system. Right. Show us the research. Show us the studies. It's always the big thing. Can you tell us about how difficult it is to measure that? First of all, like the process that goes into measuring the lymphatic system, and then what research we have and what experience we have around that can get us to that benefit.
Right.
Lymphatic.
Well, I like the fact you brought up what's the problem with it, because for one thing, to do lymphatic circulation tests, you have to inject the subject with radioactive isotopes to track it through the system. And this is your lymphatic system.
So fun. Sign me up.
It's like your major health system, and you're going to zap it.
Sign me up.
I know. And that's one of the problems, because people don't want to do that. And that makes perfect sense. That said, there was actually a study, I'm sorry to say this, because there were bellicon people semi-involved because they offered a bellicon for this test. And it was in the Netherlands, and this is a few years ago, but I say this because it was a terrible test. I mean, you can go on all sorts of cancer sites and they'll recommend, for people who are dealing with cancer and trying to get the lymphatics going after surgery, that sort of thing. And you'll see recommendations from trampolines, mini trampoline exercise all over the place. Yeah. So we keep waiting for this major research study to be done. And it just, every year it's like no one gets it. And so you see it in a piecemeal way when people talking to cancer patients or something like that. Yeah. So this study was done and what they did, rather than really doing a workout, they just stepped There was an isotope put in one leg and not in the other, and then they just took steps on the floor and then moved over to the trampoline and did steps there, and they tracked it, and they saw a 100% increase. It was twice as fast when you were just doing the exact same stepping on a trampoline.
Stepping on a bellicon versus, wow, that's big jump.
That's a big jump, but they weren't jumping. I mean, that's what drove me crazy. Is
that was just without even jumping.
Right. So if you go to like the textbook of medical physiology that's used in medical schools, the standard one, Guyton and Hall, and you look at what moves lymphatics, they have a list of 4 things, and it's heart pressure from heart rate, because it's alongside the lymphatic system, movement of limbs, things that and actually one of them is just manual manipulation, which
lymphatic massage.
They don't include gravity, because what exercises include gravity as a major factor? So that's one of the red herrings. They don't have that. But with this test with the stepping, I mean, when you're actually rebounding, you're moving your limbs like crazy. There's a lot, and your heart rate increases obviously greatly. And so this study with the ones that we had just didn't include rebounding exercise as an exercise. But even with the stepping, it was twice as fast.
It was twice as fast.
You can imagine that I would guess something like, I've seen studies about exercise 5 times as fast as normal rates.
Yeah.
Guyton and Hall actually will go as far as 15 times as fast with exercise.
And there are studies that show that just exercise and movement, help our lymphatic system, obviously. So that's just in general. So we know that all exercise is good. And so this is like a specific thing, on the rebounder. So we can see, and it moves vertically. So,
and that's the other thing. It's all about the gravitational forces. And that's actually just like they say with the, the heart rate and everything, those are pressure forces. And when you're bouncing, that's happening throughout your entire body. So that's the whole lymph system is being pressurized and depressurized, rhythmically. I mean, nothing is going to, until this real study comes out, we can. It's
bellicon family. Are any of you volunteering?
Please,
do I hear that in the comments?
Yeah. If someone wants to
volunteer,
it's an assistant professor out there who wants to be a full professor. This is the way to do it. Do a study on lymphatics and rebounding.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. So, okay, this brings us to the next topic, which is bone health, osteoporosis, building bone density. So we talk about that as being a wonderful benefit, specifically with rebounding. And a lot of people will say, well, don't I need weights in order to build a bone density? That's a big topic. So we can kind of touch on that. And then also just touching on how specifically rebounding builds bone density and any research around it.
Well, once again, all these things are under-researched to some degree. But this is one that actually has had some very direct research. There's actually a study that we haven't even, Fayth, you and I haven't talked about this before, that somehow I think because it was during COVID or something, I missed it. But it was in the Annals of Cell Biology. And it was specifically about body fat and bone density. And the age range was 25 to 30.
Got it.
And they showed significant improvement in both of those cases. And it was 20 obese women. So certain, people who were actually trying to target these areas, right?
Sure.
Let's see. So they actually just said, I'm just looking at a little note I have on it. Significant improvements in both parameters. But there was also a study in 2015, Journal of Medical Association of Thailand, that was actually, once again, very specific. And not only did it increase bone formation and reduce bone loss. I mean, they could see the indicators for those things. Not only are you seeing stronger bones, but they also noticed that they were comparing exercising on a mini trampoline to a wood floor, like it's just a hard surface.
Got it.
And once again, and this happens in a lot of these studies too, where some of the significant results are things they aren't directly looking at. So they actually noticed an improvement in muscular strength and cardiovascular fitness,
even though that wasn't
as well.
That was just a side.
No, it wasn't part of it, but they also noticed that was happening too on the trampoline, more so on the trampoline. I mean, both were beneficial. Aerobic dance was what they were using, but it's more significantly on a trampoline, on a mini trampoline. So that was a very definitive one. They actually looked at the bone marrow density and could see the increase. Another one was a Korean study that actually came out, I guess, maybe 5 years ago,
Sure.
which showed, I think it was an 8-week study. It showed a 1% increase in bone mineral density in that 8 weeks, which is really significant. But of course, if people are really worried about, why are people worried about bone density? They're worried about that because they don't want to break a bone especially when they're older. And they kind of skip over often. They keep looking at that metric and then keep skipping over the balance benefits.
Yes.
And there's so many studies about improved balance, like 12 weeks of really modest exercise for older adults on many trampolines improve their ability to prevent forward falls by 35%. So even if your bone mineral density is up 1%, you're not going to fall because you've been doing this.
It's huge.
It just reduces that whole fear of breaking bones or breaking your hip or something like that. I mean, I got this from my 93-year-old mother to help her with that because she was having starting to have falls, and she hasn't had a problem with that since.
Yeah, and that's a comment we get a lot on social media. We'll post videos of people 70 plus bouncing, and we'll get, don't do that, you're gonna fall. And it's quite the opposite. When they have support handbars, they're just as for peace of mind, and they're working in the right way. I think a lot of people picture we're flying high doing flips, and it's not that. Our feet are in contact with the mat. We're working gently. We're working with the bungee, with gravity. Then it's wonderful, and it's this missed opportunity for those of us who need improved balance. And then there's the cognitive function, so proprioception, coordination, that goes with it. That people don't think to work until it starts to go. So those cognitive benefits are.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's something that I think, we stopped working in the office like a lot of people during COVID. And one thing I found like when I was working on something specifically, we got so much harder. And I realized, when we were in the office, we had a showroom with bellicons. Yeah. And if I had writer's block or something like that, I would just walk out and 5 minutes of bouncing and it would clear it up.
Yes, clear your head. Yeah.
And it becomes, you realize, because I'm getting, physiologically, you're increasing blood flow to the frontal lobe.
To the brain, exactly.
And especially the frontal lobe, which is the management section. That's the one that kind of clarifies what you're doing and where you need to go. Yeah. And I'm a coffee drinker, but I thought, oh man, this is like better than 3 cups of coffee.
Immediately you had that clarity of thought. No, that's, and that goes along with just the de-stressing benefit, which is all exercise in general, of course. But I think that rebounding, especially, you get the happy endorphins to help us de-stress and feel good. But like you said, you also have the fun factor of being on a mini trampoline and all that is associated with that, to make you smile. So
it's the efficiency, the idea that, just like even the original NASA study, what they were talking about was how efficient it was at the amount of energy expenditure, how much benefit you were getting. That was one of the things they were looking at. And I guess that's, when people are looking to either lose weight, to improve their balance, bone density, get their body, get the lymphatics going. The fact that it's not just incredibly convenient, it's right there. Yeah. But that for the amount of time and energy expended, it's incredibly efficient. Yeah. That you can get this. Some of these research articles. The American Medical Association, they recommend 150 minutes of cardiovascular, moderate or vigorous cardiovascular exercise a week. A lot of these studies were like 20 minutes 3 times a week. Yeah. And yet people were showing improvements in cardiovascular fitness.
Even just from a little bit. Yeah. That's why we say start small. Sometimes I think that pressure of having that 30 minutes a day is a lot. I don't have 30 minutes a day sometimes. So 5 minutes. I should be bouncing right now. That's what we're talking. Okay, so that brings me to our last.
Young children are also a fitness exercise. Chasing. Yes,
they bounce. My kids bounce. My kids bounce. That's a whole nother topic. So last thing I want to touch on before we open up to questions, pelvic floor. And we joked before this chat, John and I, that I was going to quiz him on all things pelvic floor, women's health. So I'll jump in here as needed. So I take you by surprise, but I could talk about it for a second. So biggest misconception and is about, rebounding is not good for your pelvic floor. It's going to make you pee. I pee when I jump. Okay. That's we'll just throw it out there as a big topic. So I can tell you, we had an interview with a pelvic floor physical therapist. It's on our YouTube channel. We can link to it in the comments. And she shared that even with prolapse, which was huge news to us because for years we said no bouncing with prolapse, that with the right warm up and the right bungee strength and the right methodology, it was beneficial for the pelvic floor. And there actually is a research study around that where they were able to measure the stress and strain and the muscles fired in the pelvic floor while one was bouncing on a rebounder versus the solid ground. So that did happen, and we can link to that. But I can tell you from experience, from having 3 kids, but also from working with clients and from this study, that what happens is the really deep involuntary muscles fire because we're working on this unstable, malleable surface. And so pelvic floor are some of those muscles. And so they're able to kick on because of the instability in their involuntary muscles. When we only work out on the hard surface, the surface muscles like the rectus abdominis, the six pack, those tend to kick on to protect us from the stress and strain from landing on the ground. So there's wonderful pelvic floor health benefits. We have pelvic floor series. And I always tell people, start with closed chain bouncing. After I had my 3rd kid, I did not open chain bounce. I kept my feet in contact with the mat. You have to mobilize for warm up. You have to work on breath. You have to free up the spine, the jaw, the fascia. It is like a full body approach. No longer do we just say Kegels and bounce. Like that is very outdated. So we have a series for pelvic floor health, but it is a benefit. So please don't don't shy away from that, and don't shy away from questions regarding, involving that with pelvic floor health. Pregnancy is a little bit of a different topic. I won't cover that in this one, but if you have questions about it, we can do it. Anyways, do you have anything to say about pelvic floor health, John?
Well, yeah.
Please. I had to get that out of my system. I've been wanting to get on live stream for weeks now and tell people they can bounce.
Well, I mean, pelvic floor is one of the specific kind of not tricky areas, but one of those nuanced areas. I mean, of rebounding is not nuanced. It is phenomenal, and it's incredibly efficient. It's great. But pelvic floor is sort of like knees, where if people have issues with their pelvic floor, just like if they have issues with their knees, can rebounding help them? Can it strengthen them? Absolutely. But rebounding, for instance, really uses knee flexor muscles a lot, which is why it's great therapy for that, unless you're just recovering from surgery or you have this really difficult chronic problem. Then it might put too much stress on it. So it's sort of like if you're on this side of the hill, it's great. It's going to really improve your strength in your knee. Pelvic floor is the same way. You've got to really start easy and slow.
Yes.
Because you're really, you've got to take it from zero and just really build it up.
Yes.
And same with knees. And if you do find, just like with knees, you always talk to your doctor before all this, but if you find that it's too much exercise for it, it's too much, then you back off or you find another form of exercise just to protect yourself. But it's for most people, you can find a way to get the ball rolling and
with the right methodology. Yeah, it's a good point. And yes, of course, you check with your doctor. We are not physicians, John and I, not recommending, but it's
and everyone's different with things like knees and pelvic floor. Everyone's different, so you really have to.
And your point about starting slow is important. I bounced for maybe 5 minutes once a week after I had my 3rd kid. It took me about 6 months to even do 5 minutes on my pelvic floor, and I've been bouncing for a while. So you have to really kind of start slow, and that's with any life event, surgery, injury, coming back. Okay, John, I'm going to open it up to questions.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, so let's see what we've got going on here. Question right, wise, question wise. All right. Oh, I love where everybody's from. Okay, spring rebounders. I used my Cellicizer for 2 days, and my knees were hurting very badly. I also have a bellicon. Can you elaborate on the difference between the spring rebounder and the bungee and pressure on the knees?
Yeah, it's. I mean, they're the physics behind a spring and a bungee are just so different, for one thing. And the problem is, and that's actually part of the development of the bellicon. The idea was to have a suspension that you could absolutely tweak, so that you could customize this to anybody. So a bellicon bungee, you will never reach the full extension of the bungee. So you're never going to get a tug at the bottom of the bounce, and that's very hard to do with the spring. I mean, you're dealing with steel, right? So people who have used both, a spring rebounder and a bellicon, know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. There's a firmness to springs. That's why I think when I first got there at Trowleys, they seemed almost interchangeable to me. They talk about their differences. I didn't feel them, just to be honest. And there's like a tug at the bottom. You'll never get that. You get a sine wave resistance with a bungee cord, because that's engineered into the synthetic latex in the bungee. We have our own formula for that, actually, so that the molecules are all aligned in such a way that it's extremely elastic. And it's not just a feeling difference, obviously. I know a lot of people like that who have had to stop rebounding on springs because, especially knees, joints, that sort of thing, they're feeling the impact. Even though it's a low impact exercise, over time you do get that. And your body also knows. You can feel it when you go to the other thing. It's pleasurable. You're not feeling the stress on it. And a lot of great exercise are like that, like swimming, and you can feel your body being engaged. And rebounding on a bellicon, it's like that. The smoothness of it, you feel it all being engaged. There is a big difference between
lower impact. Yeah, you feel a little less jarring of the neck and more low impact. So that might be why you are feeling. Also, you can customize the bungees. So the springs, you have one spring setting for everybody, and so with the bungees, you can really customize it to get exactly like your weight and your needs. And so I think that's a big difference with the springs versus the bungees, is that we're not all the same. So you have to be able to choose a bungee that works for you. So
you're also getting more muscular engagement. That's why our frames are taller than springs. So you can actually dip deeper into the mat. That's where you're getting the muscular engagement. That's where you're getting so much of the fitness, and you're getting without the stress. So if you prolong that, it's just almost like lifting weights. If you prolong that, you're actually increasing the amount of energy expended, and the muscles engaged. So the idea of dipping deeper in the mat, it's a win-win. It's less stress, but you're also getting more exercise. Awesome. That's part of the concept behind it.
All right, we have a new question. John was here yesterday. You are all-star bellicon viewer, John. The build quality of bellicon is awesome. Also, I'm glad I brought the carry bag. Very nice. I like the socks too. Question, T-bar versus support hand bar. Who are the target users for each? You want to talk about that?
Sure. I mean, what I've always thought with that, for instance, I mentioned my mother earlier, she's 93 now, but I got the bellicon when she's, I think, 85. That sits right by her bed, which is, the handrails, the support bars, those are people who really need that extra security, that because it really helps you come on and off much more easily. Like the T-bar is great for stability, but it's also positioned on the side of the bellicon. You don't want to be yanking that to get up and off in the bellicon if you have balance issues. So my question for customers, when I've talked to customers about this, has always been, do you have pre-existing issues with balance or stability? And if they say, well, yeah, I do, or, then get the support handbars, because that's going to help you on and off. You've got these two rock solid steel handles and you're ready to go. For people who want a little extra, or some confidence. And that's why, actually, I liked it when, Fayth, you mentioned that using it for people who might otherwise be afraid to really go for it on this, the confidence, that is so important, because if you're worried about falling, or you're worried about something like that, you're not going to really take full advantage of it. So it's worth it to get it for that. And the T-bar is great if you just want that just in case, a little extra stability, or doing some
not
exercise,
as stable.
you're not sure. Yeah, it's and what's nice about the T-bar is you can just take it off. It's easy to remove it, so you can go with or without it, which you really can't do with the side handles. Those are, you put them on really to stay. So
I love that some of you are saying, I'm getting my bellicon right now to bounce. That's awesome. Get on, bounce. Don't just stare at me. So much more interesting. How do you decide on which support bars to pick? So it's what John said. If you're really needing a lot of support, the support hand bars, the side bars are the most supportive, and you can choose between one or two for obvious reasons. One will be a little less supportive, but two is if you really need both hands on. They're the most supportive options, super stable. You're not going anywhere. Whereas the T-bar, it's more just there for peace of mind. It's not, I would say it's more for versatility of training and easier to take on and off. Whereas the support hand bars are like your most foolproof safe option.
And, let me say too, if you're someone who's relatively fit and you're trying to decide whether you need a bar and you're not new to this, one of the interesting things about rebounding is how quickly your body adapts to it. So if you have a little question about it, but you've never really needed a support for other types of exercise, you don't need it. and just start slow, and you'll find within 2 or 3 weeks, like, that's funny. The first time I got on this, I was a little worried of bouncing off, and I don't even think about that anymore. And you think, oh, I'm learning how to rebound. The truth is, and I can say this from the research, your brain has changed in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Your proprioception and balance has actually improved to a degree that you're stabilizing yourself on it. And that's part of the amazing thing about this sort of exercise.
I wanted to mention there's a few people asking questions about which bungee strength to choose. And we have a video from yesterday that's on our YouTube channel that talks all about choosing and making your bellicon. So definitely check that out from yesterday. It's on our YouTube channel. Here's our next question. So please tell me about concerns with bellicon mat for pronating feet and ankles. Since it's a softer bounce. I'm 69, which bungee strength is recommended? So if you have somebody who's pronating, do you recommend they go? How does the bellicon feel, since it is a more buoyant bounce in comparison?
Right. Yeah, and this is
what bungee strength? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we used to say, just go firmer, just to create a more
that's usually what I tell
stable surface. And if you need to do that, you should do it. But once again, I forgot to think about a pronation, because it's sort of like, once again, like the knees and the pelvic floor, which is, it's very different for different people, right? So it's more extreme or less extreme. One thing I always think too is, most people bounce barefoot, but shoes, wearing sneakers, can actually give you a lot more ankle stability.
Yep.
So you're not going to get the exact same amount of exercise in your foot or lower leg, for instance, but you'll get this, your whole body's engaged in this, so you'll still be able to do more exercise. I guess it's a tweaking between you could go with the firmer bungee. I get weird about this because I want people to go deep into the mat, because I know from the research, it's like, that's what really is so great about this, is getting into that mat and getting that deep bounce.
You can wear shoes. I think your point with that is definitely good. You can wear shoes. And just finding the right bounce. And, I think it's also something that as you get stronger, you can change the bungees. I've worked on a few different bungee strengths through my life, depending on where I'm at in life and training wise and health wise. And so that's always an option to shift.
And we still have a policy where if you feel like you got the wrong bungee strength, once you try it out, since we don't have a showroom anymore, once you try it out, you can just contact us. And we do this for free. We'll swap them out. We'll send you a new set and swap them out. They're easy to swap out, send the other one back. So you get it right, so you feel comfortable.
All right. Types of shoes to wear. Do you talk about barefoot versus socks? And this is always a big topic. Barefoot bouncing versus shoes or socks. You want me to hit this one?
Sure. I mean, you're the master trainer, not me. Go for it, baby.
So I always love, when possible, with lower intensity training, barefoot or socks with grippers, so you don't slip. So we've got little grippy, sticky things at the bottom. Our new recommendation is with really high intensity training, like high intensity interval training, where you're really bouncing on a stronger bungee and moving super fast, to wear shoes. And we have people who are like, I can do the high intensity training barefoot. I'm one of those people. I'll do barefoot or go home kind of forever. So you do what's best for you, but you can go either way. So socks with grippers, low intensity training, shoes for the higher intensity work is usually the recommendation. But we've had people who have had a lot of pronation, plantar fasciitis, Achilles injuries, and even with low intensity work, they wear shoes as well. So either will be fine, but there are definitely benefits to bouncing barefoot for low intensity work that we love.
And once again, if you have some mild foot issues, it's a great foot exercise, obviously. And there are also balance receptors, some major balance receptors in the feet that probably are getting trained more in bare feet or socks than they would in shoes. So if there's no issue at all, that's probably has more benefit.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. How does bellicon help with back pain?
Wow.
You or me?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a couple of things. One is because it's a very gentle vertical exercise. I mean, if you have, back pain, once again, I'm someone who's had back pain throughout my life. Is a tricky issue, once again, depending on the vertebrae, depending on what is it, muscular? Is it, is it part of the, is it a bone issue? Is it the disc? There's so many different ways to have it. What's nice about rebounding, once again, is it strengthens muscles throughout the body. So it's going to, and especially things like core muscles. And core muscles are what you use to support your back, right? To keep your posture correct and support your back. So you're going to be activating a lot of back support muscles in a very low impact environment. And even things like discs, done gently. And if you're eligible, if your doctor says you're eligible for, they benefit especially from this kind of exercise, because the rhythmic gravitational changes, once again, they help things like discs. Discs actually need to be infused with minerals, and they need to eat like other living, material in your body. They're just like bones. They're living tissue, and they need circulation of fluids and minerals and things.
Nutrients,
And so this kind of motion really helps them expel dead cells, expel dead things, and take in new nutrients. So I keep going back to this, the gravity thing. The reason we want to start is because so many of our body functions, like the disc, even like the bones, there's studies really showing this is great for bones. We obviously moved a lot differently 10,000 years ago. We were obviously doing a lot more up and down, climbing over things, a lot more motion like that. Because it seems like almost everything in your body responds positively to this, which is one of the things to get it took me a long time to get my head around, like, why is it hitting everything well? And it's really, I think that it's like our sedentary lifestyle. All these parts of our body are actually struggling because we're living lifestyles that our body was absolutely not made for.
We're made to move.
Conclusion. That's why you see it in all. I mean, I have a whole list of other areas on the side of my computer that we could go into. The fact that they're all there is because we're deconditioned as a species because of the way we're living now. I mean, here we are in front of our computers. We're not. That's not what people did in daylight.
Bounce, get up and bounce. Everyone's like, "Oh shit, I better start moving now."
But that's right. I mean, that really is right.
It's true. Also, I've had people say, "Yeah, I'm bouncing and my back still hurts." And in working with people, the first thing I do is look at alignment. So if you're feeling like you've been bouncing, you have back pain and it's not going away, definitely check out our video platform, because we have to, and this is not just with bouncing, this is any exercise. If you're getting ongoing back pain, a lot of times you have to just pause and look at your alignment and how you're working. And like what John said, that the core muscles are engaging in the right way, because our alignment is off. We all have misalignment from being at the computer, the phone, everyday life, injuries, this and that. I'm like left hip up from holding my kid, that kind of thing. So, we've got videos to help talk you through how to build and help with that back pain. And also, when I first started rebounding, I did not know, because I started on a spring rebounder, I did not know that you could bounce closed chain. I bounced on a spring rebounder at first, and I only went open chain, which means feet off the mat. So it wasn't until I came to work for bellicon that somebody said, well, actually, you can bounce with your feet on the mat because this is a soft bungee. And that is so valuable if you have back pain, is to just take things back and keep your feet on the mat and work on your alignment and your stability and building that muscle strength from the inside out, the deeper core muscles and the deep muscles of the spine, before you do the big bounce. So you can do that with the bellicon. It's really difficult to do that on a spring trampoline, if possible at all.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
It's also, we want to get healthy faster. We want to push it. Never exercise with pain, that never do that. It's your body telling you to, hey, stop, something's not right, and figure that out. Also, the thing with, just like from these studies, you're getting more exercise than you realize on a bellicon. And a lot of times when people have not used this type of exercise before, I've had to warn them, look, don't go for it. Don't just do it. Start slowly, because you're going to be using muscles that are not used to exercise, peripheral muscles that are sedentary.
Yeah, start slow.
So if you have things like back issues, really, it's always trust the exercise. The exercise is doing more than you think it is.
The next question says that what's the best way to stimulate the lymphatic system? Are there specific movements or exercises?
Limbs moving. So it's getting things flowing. So that's actually from Guyton and Hall, from, that's part of it. So the exercise gets the heart going, the arms and legs moving. And what has not been studied at all is, that's great. That's going to do it. what's this gravity doing while that's happening? I mean, remember, this is all pressure on lymphatic, on the thick lymphatic fluid in those chain of capsules throughout your body. Bouncing is going to do it better. I mean, I say this, sue me later if you want. I mean, I know it's true. It hasn't, I've looked at all of it. I know it's true. It's going to do it better than anything.
There's a great test that we do in our bellicon Academy course at some point somewhere. So if everybody just, if anybody has their bellicon near them, you can try this test. But if you just relax your arm completely and you just take your hand and you hold on to your arm, your shoulder muscle, or even like your tricep or bicep, and you'll just feel it relaxed. Okay, so just feel that. And then get onto your bellicon and just start a very tiny bounce. Yeah, with the arm totally relaxed. And then take your hand back to that muscle again. And what you'll feel is that the muscle's a little tense. So those are the cells and the muscles naturally contracting and expanding. And it's a really beautiful little test we do during the course just to show that with the very minimal vibration, there's this life in the body in the lymphatic system. So it's really fun. So try that later.
That's a great point, because you get people who will do, like people with lymphedema, and they do the manual, forcing because these are the lymph systems are chambered ducts, right? So they'll have chambers to them. The fact that these muscles are flexing alongside of these chambers throughout the body. So if you're pushing something, you're taking one chamber and trying to force that fluid into a chamber that's full, right? And force it along. Well, all these chambers are being squeezed at the same time when you're bouncing.
Yeah.
So if you're like trying to move a train by moving one car rather than moving the whole train at once, moving the whole train at once will really move it a lot faster. You had an engine in every car. That's a fast moving train. And that's what we're talking with lymphatics.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to conclude, because guess what, crew? I got to film more videos for bellicon home. I'm going back to the film set. Yeah. I'm shooting some videos this week for not bellicon home, for our workout platform. And I'm excited. And some of them go through the lymphatic moves. So, John. Oh,
what a pleasure. And
we'll have you back.
Oh, that'd be great. And I'll
tomorrow, same time.
I'll try and respond if this is on wherever I can find.
We're on
it.
YouTube, so there's so many questions.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you
I'll try
all
and
so much for your
respond. I'll just try and respond the way I usually respond this way.
Thank you. Yeah, so John and I can respond. Sign on YouTube. Questions that you have about the size of bellicon or the bungee. If you look on our YouTube channel, yesterday we did a big talk and we actually go through our configurator and answer all those questions about choosing your bellicon. So if you've got questions around that, definitely check out yesterday's video. And then if you have questions specifically about training, we're going to be doing a talk on Friday with Julia, our master trainer and creator of Bellicon Academy. So definitely tune in on Friday. And then we'll try to answer the questions in the comments, but you can also write us on our Instagram at Bellicon USA page or Facebook. Okay, John, thank you so much.
Oh, what a pleasure, Fayth.
Everybody go bounce. Go bounce. Go bounce.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I lost my hair, because it's trying to convey to people how great this is when it seems like so few people know about it, which is a real shame.
I know. The best kept secret. Yep. Spread the word, spread the love, educate. And if anybody wants to sign up for a lymphatic study, no, I'm just kidding. I was going to say, we will be taking.
Oh, gee. Wow. That's a callback. That's what they call it. Yeah. Calling back.
All right, everybody. Thank you, John.
Oh,
I'll see you soon. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in, especially from Alaska and all over the world.
Wow,
so cool to see where you all are from. And we will hop on and answer your questions. And this will be recorded and kept on YouTube for those of you who asked. All right. Bye, John.
Bye. Take care.